Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm coming to you with a very important public service announcement in regards to the upcoming Player's Choice Godfest voting period. Because what I want you to do most is do not vote Godfest exclusives, or else this might happen. Well, maybe not that exactly, but it's pretty close, to be honest. But why such a strong and possibly jarring statement? Well, in all honesty, Player's Choice Godfest is some of the most exciting events to come to Puzzle & Dragons because it basically grants everyone the chance or opportunity to have their voice being heard because you're allowed to vote for your favorite card to be featured in a special Godfest with increased rates. Unfortunately, this also has the potential to turn into quite a disaster because if there are too many Godfest exclusives being voted in. Because even though there are going to be 25 cards being featured at higher rates, or period being actually available if it's a Godfest exclusive, they are not weighted evenly. Because in previous Player's Choice Godfests, we had excessively high rates of Godfest exclusives that did result in terrible rolling rates overall. And this is because my understanding is that all cards have a fixed amount of chance to be rolled, and through each Godfest their rates are increased accordingly. However, like I said before, these rates are not evenly distributed, so if there are too many, say 6-star Godfest exclusives being voted in, the featured card rate is actually quite low because, say 50% is 6-star Godfest exclusives, they only receive a slight boost in rates, whereas Pantheons receive significantly more. If 50% are 6 stars, we're actually having like a significantly lower amount of featured cards at respectable rates, and that means our chances of rolling silvers or other forms of sadness climbs dramatically. Now, this was a small sample that I took from December 2015's Player's Choice Godfest. I haven't been able to find like a more relevant or more recent sampling size for the most recent Godfest, Player's Choice Godfest, but this should give a relatively good understanding, even though it's older data. And this actually didn't have that many 6 stars voted in, whereas the previous one had way too many. So, what to vote for? Now, in this video, I'm never going to tell you what card to vote for because what you should be voting for is something that actually helps and benefits your team the most. Because just because, say, XYZ card is very powerful, if it has no merits or benefits on your team, you cannot actually make good use of it. So what I want you to do is vote for your favorite Pantheon card and just try to resist the allure of Godfest exclusives. Because in all honesty, Player's Choice Godfests are meant to be chasing for Pantheon cards across different families. And like any family out there, there tends to be bad eggs, even gold eggs. And normal Godfests always boost the rates for the entire Pantheon. So that means you are having an increased chance of acquiring a card who is less desirable from that family. So if we do vote intelligently and kind of like pick and choose or cherry pick the ideal Pantheon cards from each series, we might actually potentially have the strongest Godfest to date, because we are able to at least focus our increased hit rates. So, furthermore, I want you to vote for what is relevant now, because due to the way that power creep works, you want to ideally vote for something that's powerful now, or voting for something that's going to be powerful in the next month or two based on the new releases coming out in Japan. So this is because it helps future-proof that card, because every card tends to have a certain amount of shelf life, so to speak. And by voting newly created cards or cards that are very powerful, it helps prolong that shelf life and allows you to use them longer. Because let's say you vote for something that's kind of starting to fall out of the meta, it's going to be a bit of a disappointment a month or two down the road because you voted for them, you rolled them, you're happy, and then a month or two later you feel a little sad afterwards. So perhaps as a way to better help guide you, I've included my Pantheon tier list, and you can always mouse over each of the icons. You can click on them, they'll go to Pad X, but mousing over will tell you their name. And basically you can use this to help guide you to what you may want to vote, provided it's something that is relevant to you. So this video, like all my other articles, will have a link into the YouTube description down below. And one last thing I want to mention is that there is possibly a small glimmer of hope for this Player's Choice Godfest, because the last Player's Choice Godfest did have a distressing number of 6-star Godfest exclusives voted in. And this is because of the fact that top tier or top meta teams were heavily reliant on using those Godfest exclusives. the top tier teams required basically an entire team filled of Godfest exclusives with more 6-star inherits. So there was not much wiggle room, and people were almost somewhat forced to vote for them if they wanted to stay relevant and meta. So right now, presently speaking, we actually have had a dramatic shift away from those Godfest exclusive heavy teams, and teams like, say, Reincarnate Kusanagi Hime and Dark Athena, who are not Godfest exclusives, don't actually use Godfest exclusives either. They want to use key Pantheon cards. So this hopefully will allow people to see beyond the Godfest exclusive allure and vote for desirable Pantheon monsters. So, in conclusion, Player's Choice Godfest is an amazing time, but I do strongly caution you against voting for Godfest exclusives. Your vote is really much better spent on voting for those key and powerful Pantheon cards, especially those that come from bad families. You want to snipe the desirable golden egg from them. And if everyone does their part for intelligently voting for Pantheon monsters, we could possibly have one of the strongest Player's Choice Godfests around that could be even reminiscent of its first incarnation, which was truly amazing because everyone voted for basically Pantheon cards. And I've included a link where you can cast your non-Godfest exclusive here. So I wish you the best of luck in your pad adventures. Hopefully you take my words of advice when you cast your vote, and happy puzzling!